Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a week since we last did our Mondays with McKenna and Max. So this is episode 4, and a lot has happened within the span of a week. But we are back. Let's go ahead and check the chat real quick. We have Salmon coming in hot. What's going on, brother? Codenomics, hello. Lord Thoth, hello. Harley Dave. We have all the usual suspects here. Our boy John, what's up, everybody? John, congratulations on starting your YouTube channel, brother. I'm so excited to see where that goes. We got Steve coming in hot, finally on time. What's going on, dude? So, as some of you may be able to tell, I am very, very ill, or just sick. But so, like, full disclaimer, we may be going a little bit shorter than our normal 3-hour long stream. So I apologize if I'm coughing or if I'm clearing my throat. But yes, McKenna might have to take the reins tonight at some points while I'm doing that. So, but you guys like her better anyway, so it actually probably works out in our favor.
Although I am recovering from a cold as well. So we will see how this goes. We may be coughing our way through.
Yeah, 100%. So I made the joke with McKenna that she was actually the one who virtually transmitted her,
Cold.
her cold over to me, and that I am now suffering the consequences. But now we're both sick.
Yeah.
Yet here we are. So, McKenna, how are you doing? How are you feeling? When did you get sick? What's been going on this past week? Even while you were sick, you had some pretty decently sized venues that you were going to and jobs that you had. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So if anyone could see my setup right now, by the way, I have my usual coffee at 8 p.m. like usual. And then I also have like my tissues, and I'm going to hit the mute button when I'm coughing. So it's a really funny setup for now. But this week, I don't even remember. I think I got sick, I don't know, last weekend or something. And then we called off last week's live stream because I was so sick. And then I, this week, had a couple of weddings that I had to run. So, I mean, I booked it. I was like, I do not have time to get sick. I have 2 days to get better. And I literally just was in bed for 2 days. And then it felt much better. So I ran 2 weddings. And then I've done a couple of veteran interviews and another recording as well. So I packed it in. As soon as I could actually speak, I've been trying to pack stuff in.
That is pretty incredible. So you said you had 2 more veteran interviews?
Yeah, 2 more.
Man,
and one more, hopefully tomorrow.
So how many does that make total right now for you?
I haven't counted.
Oh, wow.
But it's been some recording, some written, and probably a couple on the phone. So I need to stop and actually count. But I think last time I checked, I had 16 or 17 in the queue.
Good night.
Yeah.
That's rad. I think at one point you said you had, no, I might be high rolling this, but 25? Was that at one point? Just for names, though.
I think there were 25 that reached out. Yeah, so when Jay posted that we needed veterans to reach out, I think it was 25 or 26 who emailed me. And then out of that, about 16 signed up.
That's right. Okay.
So it's really, it's been
super cool.
Yeah.
Good. And so far, and you don't have to answer me because we're on the show together and whatnot. But who's been the most enlightening that you
interviewed? You were my first that I interviewed. At least
this is true.
Yeah,
this is true. Yeah.
Yeah, and how we told the whole story behind that, by the way.
I don't know. Well, we could definitely mention it again. I mean, if you guys didn't know, I met Jay in Vegas, and I met a big portion of the Geeks and Gamers crew with Nerdrotic in Vegas. And then from there, just started like getting together with the Crowder guys, with Quarter Black, with Nerdrotic, because he's down here in California. But then on the Geeks and Gamers side, Jay and I connected pretty well, and then which led me to Rebellion Expeditions because they were doing a veteran interview service through McKenna. Because McKenna was with Jay through Rebellion Expeditions, so I had reached out to McKenna to do the interview and said, "Hey, I'm interested. I knew you guys are doing this thing," and then yeah, we went from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So really quick,
But,
guys, in the chat, is it buffering for you guys or is it fine?
Yeah, Code. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Is it when you mean buffering? Is it just like our quality is coming in and out, or is it like you can't see us or audio?
If you guys remember the last live stream that we did like 2 weeks ago now, I took down my neighborhood's internet. So I swear it's not me.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that that's right. I forgot that right as we were getting into the spiciness of our masculinity talk, YouTube was super not into that. So
as soon as we got to the part where I was like, I'm prepared for this. This is the like part that I'm really excited about. My internet cut. But anyways, going back to
the book and everything, and yeah.
Oh yeah, I had we're talking underlined. Like every line was underlined, and then my internet cut. But anyways, so going back to our veteran interview. So the story goes that when you were in Vegas, Jay and I were literally headed out of Vegas. So I showed up at the hotel that I guess all of you guys were staying at and picked him up. It was our second time meeting, and then I took him out to, at the time, he had no idea where I was taking him. Took him out to Mount Whitney, and you were actually headed the same direction as us for a hot minute there. And then he had mentioned you, but then when we jumped on, like when we put out the veteran call and you jumped on, I connected it. I was like, that is Max. So you ended up being my first veteran interview. I had no idea what I was doing. I did not know how to run anything online. So we actually jumped like on your channel and you had to send me this huge file of our interview after. And the rest is history. So yeah.
That's right. Because we wanted to do Zoom, but I was more well-versed with StreamYards, as you guys have seen. I mean, everything that we do here with Rebellion Expeditions and like all the streams that I do on my channel that you guys see is mainly through StreamYards. I know a lot of people like OBS and Streamlabs, but this just is such an easy platform to use. Like Dave, when we did the Marine Corps stream, you had never used StreamYards before, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And yet you were able to hop right on, you know? So it's a really easy platform. And so we use this instead of Zoom and just went with it. And then I had to send her the file.
It's sad that you call it easy because I had actually done my research on how to run it and I had tested it like with friends and family. I made them jump on with me, do some test runs, and then there were just tech issues I could not figure out when you jumped on. But every veteran interview since has gone fine, so I've learned.
Good. I'm glad. And it sounds like you've had a kind of a wide variety of ages, of race, gender, like just across the board of people that you've interviewed, which is so rad because like I know even before you interviewed me, you were talking about how you had spoken briefly to some of the Vietnam era vets, and I was like, damn, so like I'm small fry, you know, comparatively to some of these older guys.
You know, that's a military mindset from what I can tell. Every person that I've spoken to has called themselves like a version of small fry. And I think it's just a quality that comes with making that kind of sacrifice for your country. Because there have been veterans who I've reached out to who have basically said, you know, I spent 40 years in the military, but I really don't have much to talk about. You know, it's pretty smooth sailing. And I'm just like, no, 40 years. I mean, you have to jump on with me. Let's talk. There's a humility there. But Vietnam veterans, I have some World War II veterans in the works. And I just discovered there's one veteran still alive from D-Day or something like that. I just saw this online. I haven't verified it yet. But I'm about to reach out to him if that's the case, because I would love to interview him. I'm sure he's been in a lot, but I would love to interview him.
Yeah, right. And I mean, it can't hurt to at least reach out. I know I had a guy on the channel. I mean, this isn't close to. I'm trying to relate these two characters, but I'm trying to just like kind of correlate. But yeah, there was a channel who I wanted on my channel for a while, and I had been listening to his stuff for years, and finally just went like, you know what, why don't I just like DM him and see if he would want to come on?
Yeah.
And sure enough, like he was like, yeah, sure. When do you want to meet up? So yeah, I guess it can't help or it can't hurt. And same with you guys. I mean, like a lot of the chat has reached out to me and said, hey, would you want to do a stream? Or hey, would you, even to you, McKenna, like there are some guys who've said, hey, could you help me out with this whole streaming thing? And so yeah, can't ever hurt to at least reach out, and you never know who's going to respond. So
yeah, absolutely. I've learned that throughout my career too. I've reached out to multimillionaires and asked for mentorship, and I've been shocked by how many yeses I've received. So you just never know.
And it's funny because some of the ones who say yes are the ones that you would never expect, and vice versa. Like some of the ones that you would be like, oh, this guy is probably more accessible than the others.
Yeah.
He like I'll be able to reach him easily, like never responds back, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah. 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 Well, Charlie Plum, he's a Vietnam veteran that I interviewed. I'm currently working to publish his interview. Yeah. Phenomenal story. Prisoner of war for I can't remember how many days. I wrote it on my Instagram recently, but I believe he was the longest standing prisoner of war in the army in Vietnam. Crazy story. And he travels the United States giving speeches, universities, private businesses, etc. And he's well-to-do. He charges a lot to speak. So I saw him on an interview with Jocko Willink, and I just thought, man, I would love to interview Charlie Plum. That'd be incredible. Never thought I'd hear back. So I emailed him. He was the sweetest thing. He and his assistant emailed me almost immediately and said, yeah, sure, we'll do an interview. And we did a written interview. So you never know. There you go. Salmon put it up.
So rad.
Yeah.
2,000 days.
Crazy.
Excuse me, 2,100. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
God. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. His story is phenomenal. I have his book actually. It's really cool. I have a Christmas tree, by the way, so if you guys can't see it.
Guys, check out her layout right now.
There you go. I didn't knock it over.
He's got the Christmas tree. Oh, perfect. I'm no hero.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So
it's so rad.
Story. Yeah.
And I'm digging the. Oh, go ahead.
I've got Bill Reeder's book back here, but it's under another Christmas tree, so I don't think so.
I was admiring your Christmas decorations. So.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Salmon says, dude is a legend. Dave says that room is cozy looking. 100%, dude. That room is epic.
I'm clearly the kind of person that decorates before Thanksgiving for Christmas.
Yes, you and I same camp is like putting decorations up before Thanksgiving. However, if I didn't get sick this past week, then yeah, this whole room would have just been filled with lights for sure. So
yeah.
So let's get to our first topic, which is, the whole, not just the internet in general, but media, word of mouth, just like all of the outlets that potentially be talking about this or talking about this right now. And it's Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know if YouTube has started to flag videos just by mentioning the topic. I know that they were flagging videos that were showing the live court stream. So I think it should be fine for us to talk about. But I wanted to get your opinion on this, McKenna. I wanted to hear from you because you and I really haven't talked since I got sick. And so what are your thoughts? When did you hear about this? Were you keeping up with the case? All that stuff. I want to get your take on all this.
Yeah, so and it's buffering a little bit here, so you guys let us know if it's buffering for you. But so I guess my summary of my thoughts on the case is that Well, Tucker Carlson just interviewed Rittenhouse literally within the last hour. It was published, if you guys have seen that. Great interview. If you care to actually go to the source and hear what Rittenhouse has to say about the entire ordeal, that interview is phenomenal. I listened to about 20 minutes of it. But Rittenhouse sums it up. It was self-defense that was on trial. It wasn't him. He was the martyr. And I am thrilled that, it came out that he was not guilty, because of what that means for self-defense. But it's crazy to me that you have this kid who, he was 17 at the time, and he spent, from what I know, 87 days in jail and went through this trial of the century for self-defense. The fact that happened on American soil is unacceptable and it's ridiculous. So I'm thrilled with the outcome. The protests that are happening because of it, the violent ones are also crazy, says a lot. But I could not be more excited with the fact that he is free and hopefully makes a lot of money off of this.
Someone was saying that he's most likely, or not most likely, but has already spoken to Sandman. Does that sound right? The Sandman lawyers, or something like that. In terms of suing the fuck out of every media outlet that spoke ill or spoke negatively or unlawfully or untruthfully about this kid, because they were saying he shot black people. They said that he was a white supremacist. They're using him. They're saying that he's a Trumper or a Trumpist, which sounds very similar to Marxists. You know what I mean? Like they're making it sound like an ideology when you voted for Trump. So, like, just plastering this shit everywhere. Even the president of the United States was even calling him out as a white supremacist. Not inherently, not inadvertently. He never said, because I'm not going to lie on here, but he never once said Kyle Rittenhouse is blah, blah. But he did, well, whoever his handlers are, he posted something on Twitter that had a video of white supremacists in this country, and Kyle was on that video. So inadvertently or inherently, whichever you would want to call it, he said that without saying that. So I don't know who posted that, whether it was POTUS himself or if it was someone else. But yeah, I mean, like, when you have these people vilifying a 17-year-old kid, it's horrifying. And it's and our next, what I want to talk to you after this is how do we, because in the title, if you guys saw, I put conservative talk, and essentially what I wanted to get into was, like, how do we as conservatives, and even if you're not a conservative, how do we fight against left media? Maybe you are on the left, but when I say left media, even leftists now are going like, what the fuck am I watching? You know what I mean? Like, even people on both sides are saying, like, where am I getting my information from? So when I say left media, I'm not necessarily saying, hey, if you are a leftist, you're wrong. I'm just saying that type of media source is very unreliable. Honestly, any media source, I'll just be clear, like any type of MSNBC, NBC, CNN, sometimes even Fox will report stuff that's wrong, or just not enough information. But let's see. Let's see what if chat is saying anything about the case. Steve's dying to see the interview. Kyle needs to sue all the peoples. And yes, okay, so it is Sandman that he talked to.
I can't remember his last name, but I saw what he said about the phone call that he had with Rittenhouse, and I think that's just great to see young men like that also stand up and actually have a victory. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and Codenomics, you're right. Like I said before, it's left and right. I'm not going to blame one or the other, or I'm not going to blame one side, because I think both sides are guilty of this. It's just in bulk, I tend to see this more in left media. However, like you said, the right is absolutely guilty of this as well. So with the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict coming out and conservatives being very openly supportive and happy and glad that this kid didn't die, one, and two, isn't going to die in prison, because let's be honest, he's now 18, which means he would have gone to like a fucking criminal prison for I forget what the sentence was, but he would have been killed in there. So essentially, this thing saved his life. This trial saved his life. There will be irrefutable damage done to him mentally, physically, emotionally, but he still has his life. He still is able to talk about this and maybe make an impact later on in his life. If he hasn't already, I mean, he's already made impact. But with all the media outlets talking about this, with everyone spewing their side, well, this just promotes how wrong our justice system is, which our own vice president in the United States said that. With both sides talking about this, how do conservatives respond, do you think? Do we respond with, I understand where you're coming from, I see what you're trying to say, but we have to count this as a win? Or do we say, fuck you and fuck everyone who thinks that this kid is a villain? How do we approach this? Because in my experience, the tolerant left has been extremely divisive and extremely aggressive, and has said, like, fuck you, you white supremacist, like, killer, fucking murderer. And conservatives are going, listen, we hear you, we understand we're coming at this from like a place of concern, of compassion, of understanding. Is the time for that gone now, or do we have to continue that and take the high road? What do you think, McKenna?
So I feel like probably from our phone calls and live streams, you can guess my answer. I have zero compassion for anyone calling for violence, zero interest in listening to their opinion. To me, their opinion is completely irrelevant, and their opinion is what's doing damage to our country. So I would say first and foremost for us to recognize that it's our freedom that is on fire. And in this case, it was particularly self-defense that was on fire. And that right now, the violence that we're seeing, the calls for blood, all of that is unacceptable. And I think that for conservatives to be able to stand and call it out as unacceptable is where I feel we should stand.
So say that one more time. You feel like calling something out that's unacceptable is where you stand?
Yeah, so and I don't care which side you're on. If you're calling for violence and you're calling for bloodshed and you're calling for the defamation of our American flag and you are calling for Rittenhouse to burn in hell, then I think that for conservatives or for anyone to call that out as unacceptable behavior is where we should stand.
Okay. And do you think that we should call that out with a strong fist, or do we need to call that out with good intentions, I guess I should say? You know what I mean? Like,
strong fist with good intentions.
Okay.
But I think for conservatives to just kind of let it slide, I think that we have seen where that's gotten us. And I would say if you're not happy with the results, then a different approach makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Because the only reason why I ask is I saw a pretty interesting video from Prager University. I don't know if you've heard of them or listened to them.
Oh, yeah.
But they just recently had like a little clip, and they were talking about the left seems to, or I guess left media seems to not play by the rules. How they speak and how they portray things and how they withhold information is always very aggressive. It's always very there's ill intentions behind the things that they do. And so some people would say, oh, that's playing dirty, like when you withhold information, like we have someone in custody, but he or she skin color, we don't really know. And it's like, no, who's in there, but if it doesn't fit your narrative, you're not going to release that information, type of thing. So essentially their discussion was, do we fight like the left? Do we do the same thing? Do we kind of cut corners, and how do we fight them if they're going to fight us dirty? And what I believe what the conclusion of the conversation was that we can't fight dirty. Our integrity still has to be kept intact. How we speak about it has to be how they speak about it, which is with the utmost confidence, the utmost arrogance, the utmost, like all this stuff, because they'll say there are 37 genders and they won't blink an eye, right? Or they'll say like maps, the P word. I can't say that on YouTube, but adults who should be killed in prison or wherever, that prefer young children.
Yep.
These people are trying to introduce the word maps, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, oh crap, I now forget. Chat, can you guys help me out? What was maps again?
I haven't seen this yet.
Oh, you haven't?
Yep, this is new to me.
Oh my lord.
Yeah. Is it gonna make me want to lose my crap?
Yeah, no, seriously. Let me chat, if you guys wouldn't mind, I am going to see if I can pull this up.
Okay.
At least
put it on. Stuck it in the chat. Oh, and Salmon Outdoors.
Oh, did they? Okay.
That's sick.
Let's see. Yes. Thank you guys. I wanted to pull up the article, but you guys are awesome. Yeah. So there was a teacher that was trying to put it in their lecture, and the teacher was, I believe, they, them, but they were saying that, right. So they were saying that maps was a more compassionate way of talking about perverts, because they needed rebranding, whatever that means, because not all P words are offenders. You know what I mean? So it's like, not all P words have been to jail for what they prefer.
Okay.
But so look at how confusing this is. I'm doing like 3D chess in my head. What's up?
I know, but it was a man, the professor.
You know what? I don't actually know him. I don't know if it was a man or if it was a female.
I saw the video. I saw like the first few seconds of the video, and I did not watch the whole thing. It was so sick. I did not care to watch it. I was like, that's all I need to know. But from what I remember, it was a man. I don't care what he calls himself. From what I remember, he was a man.
So I thought, because that's interesting. I thought it was a woman dressed up as a man.
Who knows anymore, honestly.
And that was the thing. Is like, you don't know which way it goes. But all that being said, when the leftist media, or when left media starts fighting for maps to be the new thing, because they're like, well, they're not all aggressive. Well, they're not all pedophiles. They're not. I'll just say it, because let's be real, I'm not monetized or anything. So, but like they're not all perverted, or they're not all. It's like, fuck you. They are. Like, I'm sorry, but let's just be real.
Yes.
Like, look at violent crimes within prisons and jails, and everyone will tell you, and all the statistics say that like all the criminals, regardless of their or irregardless of their race,
Yep.
they will come together and go, "Oh, that dude's a pedo? Oh, he's fucking dead. Like
Mm-hmm.
that dude is going to die." So it's critically, or it's very well known within the criminal like system that that type of crime is seen far worse than anything else. You've
Mm-hmm.
got multiple time murderers and serial killers, and even those guys are like, that dude did what to a kid?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty interesting. But
Yeah. So,
with that, yeah, go
oh no, go
ahead.
for it.
I was just gonna say, with stuff like that is being promoted by left media, how are we supposed to fight against that when they're so
Mm-hmm.
confident in saying like, this is just the new normal?
Yeah.
Maps is just a thing now. Do
Mm-hmm.
conservatives go, okay, I understand where you're coming from, but let's just have a conversation about it? Or do we say, fuck that conversation? That's no. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how do we go about this?
So I would say that you pretend that you have a kid. Pretend that there is a gun held to your kid's head. How would you respond in that moment? You're not going to respond by, hey, man, I get where you're coming from. You got to let anger, but we need to talk about this. You're going to respond boldly and decisively. And this is not about playing dirty like the other side. This is not about, shoving morality to the side. This is about standing boldly and decisively for what is right, for justice, for morality, for the things that actually protect you and generations to come. Because the fact is, our future generations are under fire. Obviously, we're under fire. So I think for conservatives, you kind of, for anyone who's kind of on the fence about, well, I don't know how to respond to this, and I don't want to appear like the left. I don't want to appear like the lunatics. No, if you're standing for what's right, truth speaks for itself. As long as you're willing to stand there, as long as you're willing to take the consequences of that, which means that you are going to piss some people off. But I think that for us, we have to be as well. Okay, actually, Jordan Peterson sums this up. He has this quote that basically says, and he's speaking particularly about masculinity, but I think this is across the board in this situation. You have to be a monster, and then you have to learn to control it and channel it. And I think that in this situation, that's how conservatives have to respond.
Yeah, I love that quote from him so much. Is like,
So much.
I forget where he initially spoke about that, whether it was like a TED talk, because I've seen him speak about it in one of his lectures, because you can find his lectures like on YouTube and stuff when he was a professor. And so I have seen the lecture before, but I don't know like where, because I know he's said it multiple times. But yeah, that quote is so it like ramps you up, like it gets you exhilarated, because you
Yeah.
really, when when you're in a fight, you have to have that fight or flight mentality. And I think at this point, with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and
Mm-hmm.
with self-defense on the self-defense on trial, essentially, um, we have to fight its point and be that monster that he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard because a part of me wants to, a part of me thinks that like the only way that we're going to get to people is by having a common ground, right? Like having commonalities and trying to find those things and like bridge the gap between people and say, hey, you also believe this? Oh, cool. Okay, well, I believe that as well. How can we come to the same understanding?
Yeah.
But now there's no more common ground. You're either this or you're that. And so now I don't know what the rules are anymore, because the rules used to be, let's find common ground. But now that there's no more common ground, it's like, well, then all that shit's out the window then, I guess. Like, we just have to be monsters now. And the only way that we can fight this is by being just as aggressive. But go ahead.
Well, and I used to relate to that, where I was like, oh, a discussion, a civil discussion, as long as you have a little common ground and some compassion, can get you places with most people, right? And I threw that out the window years ago, because come to find out, a lot of people don't want to be reasoned with. They don't care about evidence. They don't care about facts. They either have an agenda if they lack morality, and they will go to no ends to see that agenda through, or they are brainwashed lunatics who are willing to follow anyone off the cliff. So you cannot, there's no way to reason with that kind of mentality. So it's a waste of breath on our end. And worse than that, it's giving it a margin and time for them to actually create problems and then create bigger problems, which is what we're dealing with now. So I think that for a lot of people on the right side of history, of course we want kindness and compassion to be leading roles, but we forget that we're in a broken world where that only goes so far, and it only goes so far with people who actually give a damn about morality.
That's such a great point. What you had said about just the fact that these sorry, I think someone had mentioned in the chat too. Let's see if I can fit it. Was it Salmon who said it? But yeah, you because you said that you used to be of that understanding, that mindset of, yeah, let's find common ground. But when people are so fanatical, when they're so out to lunch with all this stuff, where they've just kind of been brainwashed, like you said, you can't find common ground, and then it begs the question of, like, so when do we see the pendulum swing? And I think it's when that ideology, that insanity, like, there's something needs to, like, snap, where I like I said, I think we've said this in a previous stream, I thought that was Afghanistan. I thought people were going to wake up when that happened. And that didn't even, like, I was like, holy shit. So now we've got Afghanistan, we've got Kyle Rittenhouse, we've got all these things that are consistently happening. Like, are we going to have another, 2 towers on our hands before? At this point, I don't even think that would, if that happened again, people would still go, well, it's because race tension. It's because of race relations. It's probably, probably a white angry male flying that plane. And I'd be like, holy shit, are you fucking kidding me? We're still talking about race?
Yeah, well, it's like they're trying to make Rittenhouse a BLM issue, and it's the funniest thing when there was not a black person shot in this case, and yet BLM thinks they have a right to speak about it. But I think it's important for us to recognize that Rittenhouse and self-defense at large just saw a victory. There are victories happening left and right by conservatives that are willing to stand, and by truth coming out. And I do think that there's so many issues that are building that enough of us are waking up. And like you said, you're seeing that on this side, but you're also seeing that on the left. The Democratic Party is beginning to eat itself from the inside out. And I think that's when things really start to change, is when they're waking up their own people.
When your own allies, because they're like, oh, ally as fuck. Have you seen those comments or like Twitter handles where it's like, so and so, like, this, here's my name, here's my pronouns, ally as fuck or something, or vaccinated as fuck, and it's like, wow, you're so hardcore, bro. That's so metal.
I have not seen someone with one of those handles.
Oh yeah, AF is like the new, I'm hardcore, bro. Like, don't fuck with me.
Okay, wait till I change my handle. I have some ideas.
Yeah, right. Conservative as fuck. But yeah, the interesting thing about that is, like, when your allies, because these people don't have friends, they don't have family, they have allies, and you don't need allies, you need friends, you need family, you need people who support you, you need just fucking loving relationships, and allies don't do that because these allyships will leave once their narrative is broken. You know what I mean? There's no bond there except for a narrative. So when they find that these narratives start to fall apart, or they start doing research on their own, they go like, I don't know if I can be an ally anymore. That's, like you said, that they're eating themselves from the inside out, or it's crumbling because they see the deterioration, or they just start saying like I'm really not feeling good about myself. I wonder why. But yeah, it's Codenomics says Democratic Party is pushing their own people to the right. The problem is that in turn pushing the right, even more conservative. Dave says patriotic as fuck. I like that. Unvaxxed as fuck. How the fuck am I supposed to say this, Salmon? No, I'm not even gonna try. I started to say. Okay, you've got this.
Okay. Pneumonia.
Pneumonia?
Microscopic. Nope, I have no idea.
I see volcano in there. Yeah.
What? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Look at her.
If it were supercalifragilisticexpialidocious as fuck, maybe I'd get that one. But yeah, how about awake as fuck, conscious as fuck? But then people would say like, oh, you're woke as fuck. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so it's so interesting. I'm just like I said, I don't know when we're going to see a change, because one of the other topics that I have in the man, sorry, you guys can tell that I'm sick. My mind isn't working
slower than usual.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys look at our description or our title, tonight I have Rittenhouse, Conservative Talk, and X-Men. And you're like, how the fuck does X-Men have to do with any of this? By the way, we got our boy Alex in here. I thought Trump was going to come back. Guess not. You know what, Alex? I don't think this is the podcast for you, my man. You're more than welcome to stay and hang out. But I mean, Trump is alive and well. Biden's on his way out, my dude. So I would really love to hear your thoughts, but I can see that you're not really in here to actually have a conversation. So it's up to you, my man. Whatever you want to do.
Good time, really quick. As far as seeing change in our nation, Kamala Harris, her ratings, Biden, his ratings, CNN, their ratings. You can look them up for some evidence of change.
Yeah.
Numbers speak for themselves, baby.
Yeah, that has been rough to watch.
Fantastic.
A2D2 is here. Hi, all. I hope you're doing well. Hey, A2, we are hanging in there. Both McKenna and I are sick. We are getting over that, but not a problem. We're here anyway, and we are grinding it out because we want to see you guys. We want to hear from you guys. And I know it's important for us to do this every Monday, or at least try to. So we are knocking it out.
Some of Alex's comments are actually pretty creative. You have to give him that.
Yeah, right. Well, I think some of them are being copied and pasted.
Yeah.
At this point, which is fine.
Yeah,
it's probably.
I like eyeliner and piercing, so.
See, the thing is, Alex, I don't know what's conservative about those things, because those are things that the left has continually said doesn't have a gender associated to it. So I really don't know. Are you talking about guys or girls or non-binaries, or The goth kids were some of the best in my best people in my high school. I loved hanging out with the goth kids because they were metal as fuck. They didn't give two shits about what people thought about them. It was great. So, and this is a show about politics and comics. So manga's Japanese comics, if you didn't know.
I was thinking this was MAGA, like Trump.
Oh yes, MAGA. Never mind. All right. I read that incorrectly. My bad.
See, this shows our two worlds. I'm like more on the political side, and pop culture. I would not know
that. I read manga, so I was like, oh, he wants to talk about manga. Nope. So, but yeah, let's see. Chat, you guys can have some fun with Alex if you want to. I'm sure you guys are having some good conversations. And it looks like we have Ash Lauren in the chat. Hello. She says, hi, McKenna and Max. Ash, thank you so much for coming over. I think this is the first time I've seen you in the chat. I'm so sorry that you have to come and see us on the day that we're sick, Yeah. But that's all right. We promise to always bring a good show. The show must go on.
Yeah, so far so good. We're doing better than I thought we would, to be honest, guys.
Yeah, seriously, right?
Because even when we were chatting pre-show, we were both like coughing. So I was like, well, we'll just see how this goes.
Having to mute my mic every single second. Yeah, Dave says this is manga country instead of MAGA country. So on the topic of comics, because like I said in the title that I have, we're talking about Rittenhouse, conservative talk, and then X-Men. And X-Men has been a big point of contention for people right now because X-Men 97 is a new title that will be coming out in 2023. Disney Plus had their investor day, and they released all these new titles. Like when I say all these new titles, it's just a bunch of fucking trash. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to hate on this stuff. If you guys look at my background, this shit is my life. If I could, I pray and I wish for a good Marvel property to come out, because then I'd have something to talk about other than this trash. But they kept announcing and we have I don't know, what was something, they were like, we have this new show called Echo, or a movie called Echo, and I'm like, I don't care. That character just came out this year. No one cares about Echo. Why are we doing stuff for Echo? And then they were like, X-Men 97, and I'm like, oh good, more nostalgia bait. No one wants to see the X-Men again other than the old X-Men 92 series.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no surprise that when you look at the director, the supervising director, and the writer / producer for the show, for this new X-Men show, the writer and producer thinks that all white men are potential school shooters and mass shooters. The supervising director believes that if you voted for Trump, fuck you. He's very clear about that. You guys can go visit his Twitter, and it's just right there. He doesn't care. So it's very apparent to Marvel that this behavior is just going on, and no one is doing anything about it. For all my Marine Corps guys out there in the chat, if you were in the Marine Corps and you posted something online, or if you posted something on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram that didn't line up with the Marine Corps, they would, what I saw happen, we had a dude get NJP'd and dishonorably discharged for something that he posted on his Instagram because it was racist or homophobic or something. So he was legit discharged, no benefits, no nothing, out of the Marine Corps, gone. I think he was a corporal. So if the Marine Corps can do that, why can't Marvel do that with their people? You know what I mean? If something is inherently aggressive towards a specific group of people that's like damning to a lot of people, 73 million to be precise, which are all the Trump voters. Why can't we fire that fucker? You know what I mean? Like, why can't that person who spews so much hate and so much discontent towards a specific group of people, which is targeting, which is racism, which is bigotry, why can't that person be fired off of one of the largest properties known at Marvel? I don't get why there's such the double standard.
That would imply their sanity and logic, though.
Yeah. So, I don't know. McKenna, do you know anything about the X-Men? Did you watch any of the movies or any of the shows or anything like that?
I did, yeah. I mean, all I know is I watched a movie, but other than that, I don't know, and it was a long time ago.
Did you?
So I'm like Googling X-Men.
Oh, okay. Did you have a favorite character from whatever movie you watched?
List them out to me next.
So you've got our boy Wolverine, who's Hugh Jackman, which is probably, I think, honestly, just a fan favorite for everyone. I don't know.
Not love him.
I was gonna say I don't know someone who hasn't been like, or I don't know someone who's ever said, "I'm not a fan of Wolverine" or "I'm not a fan of Hugh Jackman." But yeah, you've got Quicksilver. We've got Rogue, which is if you guys watched the animated series back in '92 on those Saturday mornings and you were a kid, I remember watching Rogue and feeling some type of way, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, how is this cartoon?"
Wait, can I ask what year you were born? Have you said that? Can I ask what year you were born? Have you ever said that on a live stream?
Oh yeah, so I was actually born in '93. Yeah.
Okay.
But I remember watching, because the X-Men show ran for 5 seasons.
Yeah.
And then I remember watching the reruns a little bit later on when I was a little bit older. So they still played a lot of those like X-Men 92 reruns because it ended in 97.
Okay, gotcha. Sometimes the way you reference these shows, I'm like, what year were you born? And you've told me. I don't know, guys. It's questionable.
Yeah, no, I definitely not like. I know one of my Marines thought that I was like in my late 30s, and I was like, Jesus, dude, that's a little harsh.
It's literally the way you talk. You'll reference like a time or music. You'll reference like specific songs and bands. And I'm like, I don't know. You're dating yourself in the early 80s, so I don't know.
So maybe that does track, but so I guess I shouldn't say right when the show started I was watching it, because like I said, I was born in 93. But
you're like, yeah, in 92, you guys remember the good old Saturday mornings.
Yeah. I was my mom was watching them, and I was in my mom's stomach just watching with her. So hey, I got nothing. I wish I were an 80s baby, because then I could have like really lived through the 90s. Like I lived through the 90s, but like I wish I would have like thrived through the 90s.
Yeah, and for the record, 80s music, like rock music, is some of my favorite music. So nothing against the 80s. It's just his age, or you're on this side of me, has confused the heck out of me the last whole live stream.
No, don't worry. I'm still technically young. 28. Yeah. Dave says they'll rebrand the franchise as XY persons.
Oh God.
Yeah, instead of X-Men, they're X people. X persons.
It'd have to be XY people.
To be politically correct, yes, because we want to make sure that we include everyone. So that's the thing, and that was the other thing that I was upset about, was like the big Twitter uproar about the X-Men show is like everyone's saying, well, it's super political, and so I'm glad that they're going to make a show in like this political time frame. And sure, every property can be said, yes, it's political, but it's not a carrying factor. Like, it's not what carries the show. What carries the show is the characters, the heart, the adventure. It's not the reason why I loved the show was the politics. Like no one would say that. But yes, it is a political show. There are political takes. So I'm just the really frustrating thing was that people were saying I don't want it to be too political. And so the responses on Twitter were, well, then you obviously don't want to see Black people or people of color succeed in this world. Or you obviously don't want to see the LGBTQ plus community survive or succeed in this show. And it's like, that's not what I'm saying. And it's so frustrating that that's what's being taken as fact when all it is like, hey, I just don't know if I really want to see my X-Men too politicized. You know what I mean? They can be political. There have been political stories in the past, but I just prefer not to see it. And then you're automatically whatever. Nerdporial, what's up, dude? Thank you for stopping by. So yeah, it's a little upsetting that there's just constantly this backlash of like, no matter what you say, no matter what criticism you have, it's always going to be taken as aggression or not understanding the characters or something. Nerdporial, I don't know what are you talking about the new Resident Evil film that looks like a fan-made film? The one where like the costumes are awful and they released that press photo that just looked like a couple cosplayers. He says the new movie this week fundamentally changes. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. So yeah, it is that one. I'm sorry, man. I know that's a big franchise for a lot of people, so I'm sorry that's being ruined. I mean, at this point, we've gone through Marvel, DC, Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, James Bond, Masters of the Universe, and one more. Indiana Jones, maybe now?
I hope not.
Yeah. I mean, what else is there left? There's nothing left.
I mean, remake of Braveheart or something, you know?
Oh god, no one would want to do that.
No, right? It was like stabbed to the heart.
Which I kind of am glad that they don't want to touch it, because no one wants to, like, I don't know.
What about Lord of the Rings, Max? I feel like they did not do Hobbit lives justice.
Oh.
And as a person, I take that very personally.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading some of these chats.
And I'm just thinking, sorry guys, when I'm sick, my humor just gets weird. So
I want to see more black elves. Like, why is that an issue? Like we already, like, Lord of the Rings is probably one of the most, if not the most inclusive, because you have elves fighting with men, fighting with dwarves, fighting with orcs, fighting like every race. Numenorians are fighting with humans. Like, you have these colossal races and genders, and like, it's a fantasy world. So it's like, where are you putting these topical, political, ideological points in a fantasy realm? It's too topical, it's too human. Like, keep it otherworldly.
Now, what's happened to Star Trek? I've not, unless you and I talked about it and I've forgotten. I'm not up to date on what they're doing to that to maim it.
Well, Nerdporial Lifeform might actually be able to speak more about that. Nerdporial, how would you sum it up? Because I never really watched Star Trek as much as I did Lord of the Rings, but they are coming for Lord of the Rings. That's what's next, because they're going to do an Amazon property here pretty soon.
Are you serious?
And they are actually, yeah. So
that was totally a joke. I had no idea.
No, you are prophetic in that regard because they
I don't want to
are
in that way.
currently making, yeah. Um, let's see. Nerdportal says Star Trek is lower quality storytelling, no longer an ensemble cast. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Um,
Because I'm a big Star Trek fan of the older ones, and they were already so ahead of their time when it came to like what actually was inclusiveness or equality before it was twisted into another beast. So I was like, what could they possibly do with that?
with the Star Trek
Yeah,
universe.
but it sounds like, and I am not up to date on this. It sounds like they're just lower quality. Um,
And I think he also says that new Trek is the definition of woke. And I've seen a couple of instances of that,
yeah,
where it's a lot of heavy-handed, like, pandering,
yeah.
like lots of empty platitudes. Um, Dave says the best badasses in the Lord of the Rings were women. What the fuck are they upset about? And I agree, man. Like, if you look at those films, not only were the men in those films kind, compassionate, uh, like they had this reverence for people, for life, for brotherhood, for family. One of my favorite scenes in the first movie is Boromir's death, and spoilers for those who haven't seen it. But uh, if you haven't seen it at this point, I don't know what else.
I've
I
even
feel
seen
bad.
it, so come on, guys.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And the scene is so, like, it's so heartwarming and it's so heartbreaking because it's these two men crying over their homeland. They're both men of Gondor. They're crying over their family, their heritage, their home, and they're crying over the fact that they need to protect this thing before it gets out of hand. And Boromir feels like he betrayed Frodo, and it's this, like, they're both so sad at that moment, and they allow themselves to come together in this like brotherly embrace and say, "I will fight for this land," and Boromir says, "I would go with you, my king," and kind of humbles himself in that moment because he knows how royally he kind of fucked up. And Aragorn is still not able to accept his kingship, and even he is still doubting himself, but he still has to give Boromir this confidence and this peace before he leaves this world, or before he leaves Middle Earth. And so I don't know, it's just this really sensitive scene. You see these two strong men who have just like fought for their lives, come to this conclusion before they send Boromir over the waterfall. And then yeah, you see the women who are like, it's not heavy-handed because Eowyn, who feels for Aragorn, is also extremely badass. She fights the Nazgul, takes that dude's head off, and yet she still is able to feel love for men. Like, she still has compassion for Faramir. In the extended edition, she still loves Aragorn and is upset when he can't show her that same love in return. There's just so much in that movie that is so beautiful. I'm sorry, I talked for way too long about that.
Okay, so I slipped away for a second. There's some
Okay.
great stuff in the chat while I find this. But if I can find it, okay, I pulled up this book again. There is a great quote in here kind of related to all this, if I can find it.
Okay. Ash says the Lord of the Rings books are amazing. I also love the stories in the Silmarillion. I don't want to see Amazon destroy it. Agreed. Yeah, no one wants to see that. They want those films to live by themselves, and I agree. I mean, I hope that they will most likely live in infamy. A2D2 agrees. I adore the Lord of the Rings movies. We all cheered in the theater when she said, "I am no man." Yeah, and it's like I said, it still didn't feel like that was heavy-handed. And then, oh yes, A2D2. If you want him, come and claim him. Oh, what an amazing female character. She is such a badass. but that's the thing, is like, you can still be feminine, and you can still give your heart to someone and still love someone. She gives Aragorn her necklace, and even though the light of Elendil is fading, she's like, I still want you to have this. I want to become mortal with you, because this life isn't worth living without you. And most people would say, well, she needs to be independent. She doesn't need Aragorn, blah, blah. It's like, fuck you. She wants to be with him. And she can take on 7 of those fucking ring wraiths, or however many there were, I forget, with a whole wall of water. You know what I mean? Like, God, those movies are so good. What's going on, Andy?
I've ever heard.
Good to see you. What's up?
It's the best review I've ever heard.
Oh, well, thank you. I wish I could be a better reviewer, but all I'm saying is, like, this part was so cool, but MVP, baby. Thanks, man. Hey, Andy, are you going to San Diego Comic-Con this weekend? I'm going to be there. If you guys are in the chat or are in San Diego this weekend, I'm going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. It's called Special Edition, I believe. They're going to do it in like a smaller venue. It's not going to be as crazy as their normal venue, but yeah, I'll be going. I think I'm going to meet some people there, but if you guys want to make it out, definitely come say hi. Won't make it out to San Diego, but we will be at C2E2. Nice. Okay. Sounds good, brother. Well, unfortunately, I won't see you there, but maybe on the next one. So, yeah. Dave says, I spent too long trying to leave California. No, thanks. McKenna, were you able to find that thing in the book that you wanted to bring
Well,
up?
I found too many quotes. That's the problem. I love this book.
Oh,
yeah. So I think that I've narrowed it down. Okay, so this is page 8 of Wild at Heart. And this basically summarizes like everything that we've talked about in the live stream, from what we're seeing about like how should conservatives respond to what we've seen, the insanity from the left, and then down to like what we're seeing of the like defamation of masculinity in pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. This is kind of picking up in the middle, so bear with me, guys. But some women want a passive man if they want a man at all. The church wants a tame man. They're called priest. The university wants a domesticated man. They are called tenure-track people. The corporation wants a sanitized, hairless, shallow man. It all comes together as a sort of westward expansion against the masculine soul, and thus the heart of a man is driven into the high country, into remote places, like a wounded animal looking for cover. Women know this and lament that they have no access to their man's heart. Men know it too, but are often unable to explain why their heart is missing. They know their heart is on the run, but they often do not know where to pick up the trail. The church wags its head and wonders why it can't get more men to sign up for its programs. The answer is simply this: we have not invited a man to know and live from his deep heart. So it talks about how basically our society has driven men into just this like tame version of themselves, when actually it's freedom and boldness and adventure that a man seeks. And so it's interesting. This whole book just summarizes all of it beautifully.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times as a kid in church you're taught to be the good Christian boy, right? And I'm sure the same thing, the good Christian girl. Don't wear anything that could tempt the man, or like, it's like it's y'all's fault for wearing, and it's like, are you kidding? And then for guys, it's like, you don't want to be too aggressive, you don't want to, if God forbid you have to fight for something, how do you think so much good has been done in this world from aggressive men fighting for something that they believe in or something that they want? Dave says, don't show them ankles, or those wrists. God forbid those wrists or ankles, man. So
do you remember the quote in this book that's basically about like, for women, do you want a man who's like the nice guy, or did you always dream about a man who's actually the warrior and like romantic and whatever, just actually living life? There's a great quote about that. But anyway, I could do a whole other live stream just about this book. It's so good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I don't, and ladies, don't hear me say, or don't hear us say that like, oh, go marry a bad boy. There's a difference between, there's a difference between like your nice church mouse who like doesn't want to rile anything up or just kind of gets through life. But then you also have the bad boy who has no morals, no ethics, doesn't uphold any type of law or regulation or any type of morality, just kind of fucking does his own thing and doesn't care about people. Those are two different types of people. And in the middle, you find somewhere where you have integrity, morality, rules and regulations, discipline, but also someone who's willing to rebel against something that they don't necessarily believe in or something that they think is unjust. And they'll do so by doing that aggressively. And that is, I think, what we're talking about here. And correct me if I'm wrong, McKenna, but does that sound right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it sums it up. And it's buffering here, but basically you don't want a bad boy, you don't want a castrated man either, period.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wish I could find that. Yeah, it's good.
No worries. Let's see. I think I'm just looking at our time here and just checking everyone in chat. Salmon says there's a good book about that called A Man of Steel and Velvet. Interesting. I have not heard of that before. I'll have to look that up. Make games and fight the government. Well, I am, let's see, we're about an hour and 15 into this thing. And I know that McKenna and I are both, like I said, pretty sick. So I don't want to get us even more sick if we just continue to talk, even though you guys know that we could be here all night. I just kind of wanted to talk about the big, talking points, Kyle, X-Men, conservatives and liberal media, all that good stuff. And I think we covered it for the most part. If you guys, let's see. We have Emma. Why didn't Kyle's jury fail to see that there's no need to pull the trigger? Interesting. It looks like Emma might be with who was in the chat earlier, Alex? Yeah. No need to pull the trigger. Emma, I think what Kyle's jury found was that he was in self-defense, which they found that he was rightfully in self-defense. And if you watch the videos, I think that there will be an equal amount of evidence there for you to agree. So, but before we get more people in the chat that like Alex and Emma that probably saw the headline of our video and just said, "Hey, let's go attack a small channel." Yeah, we'll probably end it there. But thank you guys so much for being here. I apologize that we were so sick tonight, but next week we will come back healthy, ready to go. We will have all kinds of new topics and discussion points. So, but as always, you guys are the best fans. Thank you so much for coming by. It always means a lot to us, even when we're not. I know for me, I'm like it's 75% right now. So I appreciate you guys being so awesome. But I appreciate. Okay, I'll answer one more.
I know. I was like,
Emma,
this game.
Emma, you want to hear some answers? I don't have them for you. Okay, the jury already did their thing. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a scientist. I'm none of that shit. I just want to support my country. I want to support our right to bear arms. I want to support someone who wants to defend themselves from dying. And yeah, so that's the last question that I'm going to answer because, yeah. So, all right, guys, you are awesome. And I will see y'all next week.